that you were the first person. Like,
yeah.
what was it?
ऐसा क्या था application में?
ऐसा क्या था? It was you. And now, like in 2023, no one before this. Like, what was that something?
Not something that's going to make your profile. Trust me, if you're a person with absolutely nothing and you have a 1600 SAT, I don't even, as a university admission officer, I would not even want it. Because I have seen people with curated profiles getting the top colleges abroad. So today I got into NUS. So till 8th, this guy right here wanted to do JEE. Then I realized that I don't want to do engineering. Then I realized I don't even want to take up science in school.
So 1, 2, 3. Hey everyone, welcome back to our It has been so long.
And today we have Narayan Srivastava with us. We're truly thrilled to have him. So thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, most welcome.
And it's an in-person interview, so yay, we have upgraded.
Yeah.
So let's just start with the introduction. So we have such an esteemed guest here with us today. So I'll just start. So Narayan has been awarded with the Lester Pearson Scholarship, which is in University of Toronto. So basically, all of his fees is being waived off, but we'll get to that later. And then he's also a TEDx speaker. He's also the co-founder of the Bhumi Initiative. And another feather in the hat, he's also the head boy of CMS Arena and Sector Row. He was also the Secretary General of CMS NUN, and he has also authored a book which is called The Seven Mountains, and we'll get to that later as well. And he also got the AIR 4th in all of India. So he got a 99% in ISC board. So I mean that's a lot.
Anything else? Anything else?
I think that's a little less. You should have done it more in life.
Okay.
Let's begin. I think please tell us more about it. You can elaborate on all of this.
Sure. Firstly, congratulations. I am assuming this is your first in-person interview, so I am beyond proud to be your first guest to be having an in-person interview.
Thank you so much.
It's truly a pleasure to be here, and I think you've covered everything. That's the documented part of it. But of course, there's a very big story that is behind all of this, which I'm very proud of, which has made me who I am. And the best part about it is that while doing all of this, I've created tons of memories for myself. I've had a lot of growth. And trust me, if you would have seen the person that I was like 5 years ago, 10 years ago, it was completely different. So of course, these memories and these experiences truly build on. And to tell a little bit about myself, so of course, I've completed my schooling from CMS, Aliganj Campus 1. Very proud of my school. And very proud of everybody there. And it was a very fun 4 years there. Before that, I was originally born and raised in Allahabad. So I'm still technically new to Lucknow. But then again, I'm very, 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 very happy the way things have turned out. And yeah, I think that's pretty much about it. And yes, we'll get into it.
This is like, he's the first guest for whose achievement I need to have a note on. Because before I was like, I'll memorize it. But he was like, no, you need to keep a note because you won't be able to memorize all of that I have done in life.
So let's start with the 11th grade. So how was your day in 11th grade? Like we these days are distracted with Instagram, YouTube, Snapchat. So how was your day in 11th and 12th grade?
Okay, spoiler, I did all of that. But, but I think if I were to go back in time, I still would have done all of that. The reason being that for me, it was always very important that you have a life, you have a balance, and if you're able to accommodate everything in your 24 hours, then you should always do that, because at the end of the day, whatever you do and wherever you go, people would always judge your efficiency, and people should always judge your efficiency by what you do, what all do you do in those 24 hours. So 11th grade for me was actually one of the best years of my life, and I would say that the reason being that 11th grade was a very, very good blended version of fun, of friendships, new friendships, saying goodbye to old friendships, and also a lot of challenges professionally. So what happens in CMS in general is that in 11th, the student council gets selected, and then you get promoted to the higher position in class 12th automatically. So I was basically the deputy head boy in class 11th, and that was a very huge thing, because as much as all of these things that you listed down, I have never held a badge before. So every time that a student council was supposed to be decided and I was supposed to become somebody, I shifted from Allahabad to Lucknow, and then even in Lucknow I shifted from one school to the other, so I never held a badge. So that was something which was very important for me. But then 11th grade was a very good mixture of everything. I mean, there are a lot of students who come into your classroom and who come into your school in 11th because there's a lot of transferring happening. So that happened, made a lot of new friends, became closer with a lot of existing friends, and we just had this really cute bubble of our friendship, going on, and it was just really nice because everybody was really friendly and everyone was really supportive. And yeah, I think that has played an enormous part, because all these projects that you take up, whether it's community service, whether it's fundraising, whether it's anything for that matter, you need to have a very huge social circle to support it.
Yes.
And I luckily have been somebody who has had that, and I am very grateful for that. But 11th grade is something which is very horrible for certain people. I hear it all the time.
Yes.
And as much as I can't relate to that, but I can tell you that 11th grade is supposed to be the time of your life. Don't stress too much on just, preparing for something, because something is going to happen as it is. But what you should really do is, that's the time of your life to, explore. That's the time of your life to figure out who you are and who you want to be with and who you want to be in general. And just, you can only do that if you're present in the scenario as it is. And if you are too much consumed with what you want to do, then you're missing out.
So you were from the arts side?
We call it humanities.
Yeah,
and
so
actually
humanities.
I'll take offense of that as well.
Okay, so humanities.
I face that every day, okay?
So till 10th you were studying science, and 11th you shifted to humanities.
Yeah.
So how was that shift? How did your parents react?
Okay, let's end this today. So I was a science student with computer science till class 10. I was scoring much better in sciences, honestly. But after that, I was like very clear with my choice. So when I was, I think in class 8, I was like, look, this is what I want to do in life. I am so into political science that I can never imagine studying anything else. I'm really into public policy. I love how the government works, how bureaucracy works, all of that. And that's the kind of field I want to go in. And that's actually one of the reasons why I shifted my school as well. Okay. So it was always very clear. So for me, internally, it was very clear, and it was very clear in my household as well. Luckily, I have the most supporting mother who understands all of this. So because I had that kind of a support, so I was very sure about my choices internally. But to the wonderful people in India who have a lot of things to say on my decision, when my result did come out, and I did end up scoring 97.8% in the ISA board examinations. But unfortunately, that was the year the pandemic happened. So we did not actually give board examinations. So all the teachers were like, why would you make that choice? Yeah, and it still happens, and it's very real. And the funniest part of it all is, this is what I say to all my science students, that what will you prove? Like, what will you gain if you prove that science is more difficult? I mean, you know what's difficult? Doing a corporate job. Should everyone do that just to prove that it's the best thing in the world? No. When it comes to job and employment and actually anything else in life, people want to take the easy road and people want to do what they love. Yeah. But when it comes to stream selection in school, it's like you have to take science to prove everybody. I feel that's very stupid, and that's a very outdated idea. I will not comment on which stream is difficult, which stream is not as difficult, but I do have to comment that that shouldn't be a criteria for you to choose. But it was very diverse. So there were people who were very supportive, but at the same time, I've been engaged in a lot of Cold War since class 11. So because I was like the flag bearer and defending humanities section, so I was like, before you come at me, just know that I would have topped anyways if I was in science. So you shouldn't open your mouth.
So now coming to applying abroad. So when did you have that in mind? No, I want to go abroad. And
how did the journey start?
It's actually really funny. So my life has been a series of very unexpected realizations. Till 8th, this guy right here wanted to do JEE. Then I realized that I don't want to do engineering. Then I realized I don't even want to take up science in school. And then it sort of shifted that, okay, Delhi University is the go-to place for me. So my mom was a teacher back in 90s. And she she produced a lot of children who were from school, who were IAS officers, IFS officers. So all of them largely graduated from St. Stephen's College in Delhi. And that was one institution where I grew a lot listening to. So I was always this is a great institution. Wonderful people like Dr. Shashi Tharoor has studied from there.
Great alumni. I mean,
great alumni. So it was just a dream institution for me. And until class 10th, when I realized that, okay, what will I actually do there? So I did a little research, and I found out that I will be probably, potentially I will be taking a Bachelor's of Arts in History Honours or in Political Science Honours, and that's it. So that's where the curriculum ends and starts. So I was like, okay, this isn't as interesting as it should be. I mean, I've been idealizing this for the entirety of my life. And then I thought to myself that if I'm growing so much, because class 9, 10, and 11, 12 were like the growing years for me. I just grew so much every day was something else. So I was like, if I can study in the top university of India, why shouldn't I study in the top university of the world? And that's the realization that happened.
And that's how the journey began.
That's how the journey began. That's how I started questioning everything around me, that, why am I limiting myself? Why India? Why not global? And the worst thing that I want to mention here is that, a lot of people do have this that, oh, why are you going abroad? You should be proud of your own country.
Exactly.
Bro, how does studying abroad make me any less patriotic? I mean, so basically the complaint I have from a lot of people who come to India from different countries is that, you're earning in India, but then your money is going back to your home country. People from Afghanistan, Bhutan, Nepal, all of these people are living in India, studying in Indian colleges, but the majority of what they earn is actually going back to these countries. You'll be amazed to know that a lot of countries' economies are basically functioning off the people that they send in India and even in the other parts of the world, and then, that's happening. The whole of Punjab is basically... So, I think if at all, it makes me more patriotic because when I'm going abroad, I'm sort of representing my country, and the field that I want to take up, it's international relations. So ultimately, the goal is to represent India and to be a person of Indian heritage, of Indian culture. So if at all I am promoting Indian diversity wherever I go, and even, in the Pearson cohort, as you mentioned. So there are just the 37 of us from across the world, and from India, there's just 3, including me. So what we do is that whenever there's a meeting or something, we always teach others how to greet in Hindi language. So I have a friend from Ecuador, and we were on a meet, and he taught me Spanish, and I actually taught him Hindi. So he greeted my mom in the traditional Hindi way. He was like, Namaste, Mera Naam, all of that. So it just made me so happy, and I was like, I'm doing well because, I am sort of promoting and advertising that Indians are really hospitable. So that's the answer.
Basically representing our country on a very, very great level.
Exactly.
Yeah, completely, couldn't agree more. So, okay, going ahead, what do you feel, how is your journey with the scholarship been? Because we as middle class Indians cannot think of going abroad. So the only option that is Indian colleges. There's nothing wrong with them. I am completely with them, great education and everything. But when someone wants to go abroad, someone like us, who can't obviously necessarily afford that exorbitantly high fee, so what would be your, how did you go about the scholarships and everything?
Okay, so yeah, thank you for bringing that up, because I, as a middle class person from India, the sense of spending 3 crores on an undergrad degree will never ever make sense to me. I might be very wrong, and I might be, contradicting a lot of people's career choices at this point, but it just will not make sense to me. So that was the whole point of it all, that, I was very clear that if I'm going abroad, and even if I'm considering going abroad, the first thing that you will be shocked to know, the first thing that I searched was, is it affordable? How much will I be able to, actually pay, and how much do they require me to pay? 100%. So a lot of those things happened, but then out of all the colleges I applied, I only applied to colleges which give 100% scholarships to Indian students. So I would have applied to UC Berkeley and UCLA, but I never did that because, the UCs, they just don't give international students a 100% scholarship. And for scholarships, it was so amazing, because it's amazing now, it was traumatic back then, that I only applied to colleges which give 100% scholarships. So it was not even about 20% or 30%. It was like, either you're paying everything for me, or bro, I'm not even applying to you. So that was it. And for the scholarship thing, so I would say that, there are 2 kinds of scholarships. Technically scholarships. One is financial aid, which is not a scholarship but can be considered one because you're basically studying for free. And then the other is a particular scholarship, like a merit-based scholarship. So I think you can apply to both. Financial aid really is only offered by universities which are super hard to get into. So if you get in, you don't have to worry about anything. They'll pay everything for you. But when it comes to scholarship, it's based on your merit. So just figure out who you are as a person and whether you deserve it or you don't. So it's just that. There's no other thing to it. And trust me, I always say this, that financial things shouldn't be a barrier. They do limit your chances a lot.
Yes.
I mean, I was just having this conversation with my career counselor a year ago, that anybody who says that going abroad is something which is completely okay even if you come from a very financially low income household, I don't think that that's true at all. It is very expensive and it is very difficult to go abroad without money, because right now if you're applying with money, your chances, if they are 100, without money and only depending on scholarship, your chances will be like 2-3%. So it's like it changes the dynamics altogether.
Completely. And also, like you said, you're the first person from UP to be awarded the Lester B. Pearson scholarship.
Gratefully so.
Yes, I'm proud of you for that. And
Thank you.
Like,
Yeah.
Definitely, you're the first person from Uttar Pradesh, so yay. And so, since like such a little percentage of the people are getting awarded that scholarship, so is there any inside information or tips for the future students and teenagers like us?
Yeah.
You would like to suggest anything?
Definitely. So the first thing would be that don't, this is the most cliche thing that humanity ever produced, but don't give up hope. And the reason I say this is because I did, okay? So I know, I know how it feels to give up hope and then get this. So the things that I went through before getting this was really, really dark. And I would never want anybody to go through that. So number one is, you shouldn't lose hope. But then I would also say that, this is not to demotivate anybody, but just don't apply to this scholarship and be dependent totally on this. So when I apply to colleges, I apply to a very variety of colleges. I apply to a variety of countries altogether.
Right.
I apply to the US, I apply to the US, Canada, Hong Kong, Singapore. So my options were like open, right? So, and as it is, my options are still open. So today I got into NUS. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Congratulations.
So it's just, you never know what happens. And if I wouldn't have gotten the Lester B. Pearson award, till now I would have been in a dilemma that, okay, where am I going?
Yes,
So
yes.
even if things work out, you still need to apply to a lot of places. But this scholarship in general is only offered to 37 students right now in the world. That makes the acceptance rate around 1.6%. And it's funny because when you get 1.6% as an acceptance rate, you think that, okay, out of the 100 people who will apply, 1.6% people will get in. But it's not like that, because not everybody can apply. So you
Yeah.
need to be nominated by a school. So you're already in the biggest competition of it all, defeating everybody else who
Among your
wants
peers
to.
also.
Exactly, everybody else who wants to apply. So it's like you're already being shortlisted. And if you get nominated, that's a big achievement in itself, because it solidifies the fact that you're the best in your batch.
Yeah.
And then imagine fighting amidst people who are the best of
Best
their
in the
schools.
schools, yeah.
So 1.6% of the people who are all best, and
India.
there you have it.
Right. Okay. So if I were to make an application
Okay,
and divide it into 4 parts,
sure.
extracurriculars, academics, what was the recommendation,
Essays.
and the essays.
It would be remembered.
Trust me, there are a lot more things. Yeah.
Yeah. So if
The
4
basic
main
four.
parts, okay. If I were to categorize, so कितने किसको marks मिलेंगे out of 100?
Honestly, not me, not anybody can answer that for you, because different universities have different criterias. They have different weightages on different criterias. So I might be somebody who will judge you on certain parameters much more than the other parameters, and she might be somebody who will judge you on completely different parameters. So nobody can answer that for you. But just one piece of advice from my end and from anybody's end who has gotten in and who has made it, would be that not a single parameter can totally determine you getting in or not getting in. So if you're like absolutely the most basic person on a certain parameter, it still shouldn't stop you, because at the end of the day, colleges will determine a part of your life, but at the end of the day, the topper of a certain college in India might do much better than the top, a person who is failing classes in University of Toronto or even Stanford for that matter. So, it's just, at the end of the day, it's about how well you perform, but you cannot completely rule out the fact that colleges do add a lot of tag to your name. So at the end of the day, it's just, how do I tell this? So the best way to put it out there would be that focus on what you have, but don't ever give up a dream. And this is for general in life, this is one piece of advice I have for anything in general. That just because you don't have one single thing, you shouldn't rule out the possibility of it happening at all. Because trust me, if I would have looked into the stats and the people who got into good colleges, Ivy League colleges, but were rejected from the Lester B. Pearson scholarship, I would have never even applied there, right? But I did try, and a lot of times I was telling myself that, don't at all be hopeful for this, because it's just not going to happen. You're just prepare yourself for the worst. But then I think, at the end of the day, something or the other does work out for you. If not today, then probably after graduation.
So our next question would be, a lot of children, probably our age and our friends, we've heard that they curate their profiles, their essays, and they pay a lot of money to counselors so that they get good essays, they get good extracurriculars, but they're completely curated. So what are your views on that and being unique to ourselves?
Firstly, to anybody who does that, you can only do that to get into a good college. And trust me, I know people studying at really good colleges performing really unwell at those colleges because they never deserved to be there in the first place. So just know that even if you're doing that, because of course not me, not you can stop them. And counselors are not going to stop. It's a very growing industry, and it's very important to find the right counselor for yourself. I've been really lucky in this case. I've not only found a person who just helped me with the profile, but also taught a lot of real life lessons to me. So I have been really lucky, but I understand a lot of people will not be, because it's a very growing and a very, very corrupt industry, which it is becoming. So if you do that, this is just one thing that I wanted to say to anybody who even thinks of doing that. You can only do that to a certain amount of time, and ultimately the truth will unfold. But if you are doing that, I just have one question, and that's a big why, because you don't need to. So see, the thing is that when you go to U of T, or when you go to any good college for that matter, and you study there, you'll ultimately have to be shoulder to shoulder with your peers, and you'll lag behind, and you'll have serious inferiority complex issues if you get there, if you do not deserve it. So, it's gonna be hard for you if you do that, but at the same amount of time, I do feel like colleges are not blind in that aspect. They sort of can figure it out, and that's why you'll never hear a very curated profile getting into a very good college. You might get into a decent top tier 2 college or somewhere like that with a totally curated profile, but then it never somehow adds up, because the essays and anything that they make you write is just so introspective. It's so damn introspective that it just requires only you to write it. Nobody else can do that for you. Nobody else can even add a sentence for you, because it's just, the way that you write and the way that other people write, it's just gonna show. As for LORs and good recommendation letters, it's very easy to find out who has written it on their own self and who has got it written from somebody else. That's not an issue. But I just have one question, that you shouldn't do that. And if you're doing that, and if you need to do that, then trust me, you're at a wrong place. And it's never fun to be at a place where you don't belong. And I wouldn't ever want that I am somewhere which is maybe much higher than where I deserve, and I don't belong there, and I feel neglected and I feel left out. I would be much happier if I am at a much lower place in life, but I know that I'm there at my own worth and at my own merit. So ultimately, it's a virtuous game. It's like asking the politicians to be very political and only political and work really hard for the country. But we all know the answer to that. So I don't think anybody is going to stop, and neither am I going to give threats, because I have seen people with curated profiles get in the top colleges abroad. So it's not a very far-fetched idea. It's something that's real and that's happening, but it's just really sad. And I think that's a flaw that we have discovered about abroad study as well now. So we used to love talking about how there are so many flaws in the Indian education system, and now we know one in abroad universities as well.
Great. So now talking about common exams, like SAT, ACT. So what are your views on that? कितने number? मैंने तभी इतने से ऊपर हो ये हो and academics also, because even nowadays.
Talk about your profile, your academics, your extracurriculars. You don't need to give a view on SATs, because everybody knows we never get.
I have a very generalized view on this generalized standardized test, and that's that. Just give it once, okay? Look for yourself, try out, just give it once. Honestly, it's not that difficult. Scoring very good marks is difficult, but I do feel like it's just something that you need to prepare, give it once and side out. It's not something that's going to make your profile. Trust me, if you're a person with absolutely nothing and you have a 1600 SAT, I don't even, as a university admission officer, I would not even want you. So it's like, it's not a big deal. I mean, SAT and all these things are just so over talked about in profiles, and everybody's searching that will I get into this college if I have this profile or this SAT score. And trust me, I used to do the same thing. I mean, I can't blame people because I used to do the same thing. The universities that I applied were like, falling within the average range of my SAT score. But honestly, those are the universities which rejected me, right? So if I did have their average SAT score, they would have accepted me, but it didn't work out that way. So, but it worked out better. So, in the sense that that's not a parameter, that's not something you can judge on. That's only something that you can use as a cherry on the cake. And if you don't have the cherry, I'd still take the cake. So you're good as long as you're just continuing your hard work of actually applying. So I think essays and all these things add much more value. I mean, when I was applying, I used to go on Quora, I used to search that, how important are essays. And even though people used to stress the same thing that I'm telling everybody now, that essays are very important, I somehow was like, essays are something which are very subjective, which are very, very different. How is the university going to judge me on that? No, I would rather judge myself on my SAT score. But that's the mistake that we make, and that's something we shouldn't do. And it's like that, that if you're on the opposite end of the table, it's just you'll never take that advice until you come and you experience and come on the other side of the table. So I know people still will make decisions based on their SAT scores. I know that people will still choose colleges on their SAT scores. They'll give up the idea if they don't score well on the SAT. That's also something that's real and that's happening. But at the end of the day, coming from somebody who got in, it shouldn't be. It just simply shouldn't ever be that.
So now if I come to a point, if you do your application, what made your application different from others, that made you different?
That you were the first person, like
what
was it?
ऐसा क्या था application
में? It was you. And now, like in 2023, no one before this. Like, what was that? Something like what in your view?
Okay, so I'll probably fly to Toronto, give you the number of the applications officer, and you will have a interview.
What do you think stood out in your application?
Okay, so what are the things which I feel stand out for myself? I mean, that is how I look in the mirror, are not something I mention in the application because they are very personal to me. So, I mean, safe to say, I know that I've tried at least to be a nice person in everybody's life and have never done wrong. Hopefully those astrological things played out.
So sweet.
But no, apart from that, I think what stood out was that I am somebody who never says no to opportunities, okay? So I might have been in the busiest schedule possible, but I still would have done this interview because I'm just like, you never say no to opportunities. The reason being that you never know to who it might help, right? Because I have received help from so many people in indirect ways that they don't even know that I exist, but I've received huge amounts of help from them just existing. I mean, there's this person on Instagram, I'm forgetting the name, how contradictory, but they make very, very, I won't say motivational, but it's just very introspective and very deep sort of short videos. And I was, just going through it once, and I was just suddenly hit with all of those questions, and then I just messaged that person that, you don't even know the impact your content has had on me, and they were kind enough to reply. So it's just very, very nice to know that, people can really help you in a lot of different ways, and if I can be of help to anybody in that way, then it's just amazing. I mean, I really hope this interview also helps somebody to know that, nothing should stop you from applying abroad.
Right.
And trust me, if I share my life story with you, and a very unfiltered one for that matter. So, it's really amazing to see that because of one small decision that you take, everything in your life functions out that way.
Right.
So I had been the most underconfident kid, the most defiant kid. And then when I look at myself now, it is not a very, very evolving feeling. Trust me, it's not butterflies in your stomach that, oh my God, this is who I am now.
This is a major change.
Because it's so slow and it's so evolving for you at least, that you never realize that I've changed and that I've become this person until you actually do, and you're like, yaar, ye to main pehle nahi kar sakta. I mean, I'll agree on that. So it's really funny that, things work out, but only if you let them work out for you. So had I said no to a lot of opportunities in my life, I would have been stuck at where I was at that point of time. But one thing that I've always remembered is that, I've grown the most when I said yes. And at the end of the day, it's like maybe finding happiness for your own self can be difficult at times. And if you're only somebody who's looking for happiness for your own self, at some point of time you will not be happy with even the things that used to bring you happiness. So at the end of the day, to be happy in your own skin and your own self, you need to do something which makes you proud of your own self. I mean, a lot of people can look in the mirror and say that, oh, I look so nice, and I talk so nice, and I've done this, I've done that. But not a lot of people can be like, I am proud of the person I am today.
Right.
I gratefully am somebody who can do that, and that's why I always keep trying that, at the end of the day, whether it's the application process, whether it's applying for scholarships, if somebody else can do it, why cannot I? And if there's something in me that, makes me feel like, okay, this is why I can't do that, then I'll work on that, And that's the kind of introspection you need to improve yourself. You don't need to see somebody else or copy somebody else's profile. What you need to do, in fact, is that if you're a tech guy, if you're a startup guy, I mean, now it's a very growing business. Everybody's into entrepreneurship and all of that. But 5 years before, it was not talked about. So at that point of time, if somebody was a big tech guy who applied in computer science because that's what the society told him to, he, sort of sold his originality, right? Today, if I'm somebody who loves to sing classical Indian music, I can still go abroad and make my essay on that,
Yes.
I mean, a lot of people have done that, and it's just something that's very, very original to them. So I made sure that what makes me original stood out in my application. For me, it was that I do want to do community service, but I don't think that I'm doing a Nobel Peace Prize worthy thing for it. I'm doing that not because I like doing that. I would not want to wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday, go and plant a tree because, oh my God, I love planting trees. No, it's not that. And that shouldn't be why you should do community service.
Yeah.
For me, it was always like, it's my duty, I came here, took a cab, came here. So there is a certain amount of carbon footprint that I left. So if I can wake up and do something that's my duty, then, that should be it. That should be the end of the list. You shouldn't do something because you want to or you're good at it. In life, you need to do certain things because you have to. So that was my life story in a nutshell, and my decisions have been based on what I need to do.
I think it's a very, very interesting.
Yeah, very informative, right?
It's very important. And also, like you said that, so what would be your, so you go back 2 years back, and you are like 9, you're like, what do I do with this scholarship? How do I do it? And what would be your tip to that one child?
So I was in Narayan 2 years back figuring it all out. And what I was thinking, okay, so truth be told, I wasn't thinking. Because
Okay.
because I was the head boy of my school. There was always a council event that was happening. In the little time that we had left, there was always Bhumi that was happening, drives of the Bhumi initiative that were happening. So me and my friend Ananya Chaudhary, who is going to Harvard this year, we both were like totally occupied all the time. So we were never thinking. We just knew that if you want to do this, this is the first step that you need to take. So we did not even think that, okay, we'll have to apply or we'll do that. We were like told that SAT is the first step. Fine, get over with it. That's it. Till the point that I had not appeared for the SAT, all I knew in the world was SAT. So that's it. If you take one step at a time, it's going to be a little peaceful for you. But unfortunately, life does not give you any other option. So this is the only option that you have.
Right.
In case you have this far-fetched timeline that I'll have to do this also, and I'll have to do this also, then it's just not going to work out for you. And trust me, if you're somebody who's like, ye kar lete hain, iske baad it's going to be much more peaceful, it's never peaceful.
The question is that you talk about your academics and also the TED, the conversation which you had put out there.
Okay, so I was lucky enough to become, so this is, again, this is full circle, man. So I was just a normal teenager in class 10, figuring out that, what's the biggest thing that can happen in my life? And I was like, TED, dude, TED.
Yes.
And then one day I was just like, how do people actually speak on the TED platform? And then I saw that, there's a nomination form that you need to fill.
Yes.
And in case you can nominate yourself, somebody else can nominate you as well. And if they feel you're somebody who's worthy of a talk, they will call you. So I did that and I filled that, okay? And then for a year, it was like nothing. And after 2 or 3 months, I forgot that I even applied. Cut to 2021, I get this call that somebody influential nominated you, and that somebody influential was my principal. And this is the date, this is where it's happening, and you need to fill this form, you need to agree to a lot of terms and conditions, post which we'll finalize. So I do that, I sign off my rights to the video and all of that, because of course it belongs to TED now. And they asked me, what do you want to speak on? So there are a broad subject list where you can speak on, and the subject that I took was psychology and mental health. But I did not exactly speak on mental health, rather I spoke on manifestation and the power of your words and what you speak. So basically the TED talk was a little about that. I have seen a lot of people like this, there's this Gen Z culture, right? I am depressed. Yeah. And it's so common, it's so common that I am depressed and I'm done with life. Somebody just kill me, somebody just do it right now.
I think I need therapy, just like that saying it.
Somebody bit you, oh, this is gonna take 4 years of therapy. Yeah. So, I'm crying my eyes out every day. I hate my parents, I come from the most toxic family of all. It was so irritating for me to hear all of that and to be an understanding person and to tolerate all of that. So I made sure that if I ever get the opportunity to do something big in my life, I will talk about this, and that's exactly what I did. So that was the basic structure of my TED. I think coming back to academics, I get roasted for this so much when I say that I did not study the entire year, but if
this is not true. How can this be possible?
Okay, this is very real and this is very possible, and I'll tell you why. Because I honestly could not have. Do the study abroad project, do the whole process of application, do all of the extracurriculars, and also be the head boy of the school. So you don't really have time to study as it is. Alright, and the recipe Pearson application is due on January 16th. And our board started on February 13th. And on 4th of February, we had our fair. Okay. And till 4th of February, my entire board was limited to the speech I wanted to give on the farewell day. Okay. So, and then it took 3-4 business days to come back to the realizations that this is where I should start studying, otherwise not happening. So I might not even be able, I might get offers from the best college in the US, and I might not be able to even meet their eligibility criteria of 75%, so I should really start now.
So it's 75%?
Somewhere near, it's actually lower in the US, but for a lot of universities it's like 75-80, you need to have that baseline score with you.
If you're going to, suppose applying to University of Toronto, what do you think is the minimum baseline?
I should be probably aware of that, but I'm not.
What do you think?
I think around 75-80%, maybe 95%, not more than that. I can give you that. Okay, so a lot of people actually end up scoring really horrible in their 12th, especially the ones who are applying abroad, and that's totally fine and that's totally okay. But it shouldn't be, because you don't have to choose between one of the two. You can actually have both. I really wanted to prove that point, and I'm really happy that I get to do it now. So when the day of the board results came out, I was really scared, and I knew that I have given it my all, but only in the time that boards were happening now before that. And that's not the kind of all they require you to give. So, but then when I saw the score report, and I'm like 100, okay, thank God. So,
100.
So I was lucky enough to score 99%, and an All India rank of 4. And it was really happy. It's just a very staggering moment. These days my schedule is one day there's honoring, the other my mom is getting weighed in fruits and flowers.
Yes,
then someday, same as does that. Then someday I'm going to another school to take a session on study abroad. So it's a very happening life that's going on, and I'm living in the best time of my life. I'm in the little amount that I can, I'm earning, I'm doing all of that, So it's just really good to see the kind of impact that I've been able to create. And to continue doing that is just so nice, because you sort of prove a misconception in every step of the way. So I'm very proud of 2 misconceptions that I could help disapprove in the long run. Number one, that if you're coming from a financially middle class family, you can still go to universities which have 3 crores, 4 crores as tuition. Not only can you go there and study for free, but it's like your tuition is being covered, your health insurance is being covered, your meal plan is being covered, your housing is being covered, and they're paying you additionally to attend. So it's that kind of safeguarding your family from economic investment. And not only that, but the second misconception that I could really prove, I was in the MUN and somebody was kind enough to compliment me that way just the other day, that people in the MUN circuit are the ones who are just doing MUNs. And because of that, they have no academic profile, they have no extracurriculars, they have no good colleges, half of them are studying in whatever college took them. So, you know, it's very good to have you disapproving all of that. And I'm so happy because, you know, I'm able to do my academics. I mean, ISC is considered, you know, popularly a very difficult board in India. And I'm very happy that I was able to score an All India rank with the 99% in that. And then also do my application and get in that. I mean, NUS is somebody who would have never taken me if I would have scored a little lower in my board. So yeah, so I'm really happy, and I was in fact waiting for my NUS decision. I knew that I would not go, but then at the end of the day, that curiosity is there, that will they accept me or will they reject me? Because if I do get accepted, I'm going to flaunt it for the rest of my life because it's top 8 and you know, it's just the rankings and everything. And even apart from ranking, you know, a lot of people who I've admired for the longest time in my life have gone to NUS. There used to be a college, Yale NUS, people have gone there. So it's just very beautiful to see yourself translating into the person that you grew up admiring, and just to combine all the good qualities in everybody. And it's a very enriching process, but it's not impossible. It's very possible, and I'm here for that purpose only, that to tell you that it's possible. And that, you know, I'm somebody who's always ready to interact, to talk. So, you know, if anybody reaches out, I try my level best that I reply. And, you know, that's a very beautiful thing that this journey teaches you. It's not something unique to me. I think anybody who would have, you know, gone through the challenges and the hardships that I faced would have turned out that humble, you know, because they force you to become that person, these challenges, because you wouldn't have been where you are if everybody was very wrong to you, you know. So I looked up to a lot of people, I took a lot of advices, but at the end of the day, I always made my own decision. So that's what has landed me into this path, and I hope that works out for both of you.
So this was it, and
the most enriching conversation we have had on our channel podcast on Vlog. Thank you so much. You've been occupied like with so many different things. Like, you know, for taking out time, coming, sitting with us, helping us, because this is the first in-person interview. So I think most of the time, like, you know, we have taken so many tips on keeping like your mommy or something this way. So you should have seen the videos on YouTube.
So thanks so much for having me.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me, and to everybody watching, all the best. I think, you know, I try my level best to be there for each and every one of you. But please, you know, take on this journey, be true to your dreams, chase them, and wherever you go in life, all the very best, and congratulations.
Congratulations to you. All the very best. You always do well. Finally, really look up to you. I'm really looking forward to what you have ahead in Canada and